I'm very happy to be here this afternoon, and I'm very happy to talk to you about what I think is the power of digitalization, modeling, and AI. Actually, I'm not a digital native, I'm chemist. And actually, I'm not really an expert in digitalization, but I think a lot about digitalization and about the transformation that we are doing right now in the terms of what is our strategy, what do we need. We do a lot of research into this field, and actually, I'm very much in line with the presentation that we just had. I think it is a very important evolutionary step that we are now dealing with at the moment. So what is evolution? Evolution is really the point of adapting to circumstance. And we are really in a challenging time at the moment. It's all about resources, it's all about sustainability, but it is also all about resilience, sovereignty, or even survival. And with that, I would like to start considering when we talk about digitalization and the usage of AI and the usage of modeling and other tools, that it is actually a very complex world of different types of tools that have been developed since many years now. And when I look at this time scale here, like 1980, 1990, 2000, the period when machine learning kind of started and kicked in, I look back at this period, and it was rather the time of my PhD. I was a chemist, a food chemist trained, and my PhD doctor father, he came to me and he said, "Oh, you should do the digitalization strategy in our institute because you know how to use Word and Excel." And I thought, oh yeah, this is exactly what I want to do because I'm so really good with computers. And he just designated this position to me and said, I expect you from now on in 5 years, that was in 1995, to have developed a tool that can predict smells in foods, aromas in foods. I said, okay, yeah, let's do that. So until now, we did not succeed with this question. And I think you get the point, what I'm aiming at, that it is really the question of about what tools do we need, how far are we with these developments, what exactly needs to be answered with these tools, and is the person making the strategy in an institution really the right person to do so, and to decide who should do which type of strategy. Going into these different types of technologies, I want to explain to you why I look at this problem really very much from a biological perspective. Because I myself, I'm very interested in the evolution of biological systems, in the evolution of humankind, into the evolution of us. Did you ever consider carefully what a great system you are? Everybody, you being here. You have different types of senses. You can see, you can hear, you can smell, you can taste, you have haptics, you can touch. You are a multisensory intelligence system. You would rarely rely on just one sense. You would normally not trust your sense, not in every case, if you just touch something to decide if it is safe, if there's chemical substances in it. You would not do so. And when you're a small child, the first thing that you learn is to use your senses. And to use your senses to understand what is dangerous and what is good. And if you don't know immediately by trying, you will have your father and your mother next to you in terms of supervised learning, teaching you what is good and what is bad. So perception is really worth of considering when you think about digital solutions. And you can really look at yourself. What is it what we do? Do we collect all types of data, everything, to understand what can be seen here? No. When you give this picture to a small child, it will immediately tell you there's a dog. Even a small child of 3 years will tell you there's a dog. Isn't that fascinating? Because you learn very, very early on in life what is important to you, and when you're a small child, a dog is important to you because it's a pet and you want to play with this. Or you will very early on, if you are still living in nature, you will very, very quickly learn that there is a snow leopard. And this is exactly what we need. We need to understand, when we think about digitalization, what is really important. And what type of tool do I need if I want to go into this field? So the AI analogy, and I may be a little bit wrong, this is just what I got from my digitalization experts. You know, I'm not a digitalization expert. The AI analogy would be, it's an object representation and higher levels of deep neural networks trained to detect objects. I think you understood why this tool is important. Another one is attention. Did you ever realize how important it is and so helpful that we are able to pay attention? So you're listening, hopefully, and some of you I can recognize are listening to me. You're listening to me despite the fact that there's so much noise going on, people walking around, there's everything colorful, moving, videos whatsoever, just look around. But you are able to listen to me. Attention is so important, and this is also something that children really learn very early on. And if you have two forms of attention, either the attention that comes out of you, and here's a very nice example, because in such a case, most people quickly focus, for example, on this here, this green umbrella, because it is somehow kicking in. But you will have a problem, maybe, but just a small problem, if I tell you, look for the child which has caught a fish. Surely you will not look for a child that has caught a fish, but you will search for the water, right? You would never search for the fish and the child somewhere up in this picture. So this is a really good example, and a child will do this at the age of 3 easily. And you can do the same with different types of pictures. If you give a hint what people should focus on, determine the age of a person, people will look preferentially here at clues that give you a hint of the age of the person and so on, or remember clothing and so on. So this is a different type of intelligent system, AI analogy, attentional mechanisms in transformer architectures. So, why do I tell you that? It is really a matter of intelligent decision which types of tools you need, in which situation, where in your environment, where in your company, in your institution, and so on. For that, you need the right leadership structures with people who are able to decide to do so. Another example is context selective retrieval, human memory, imagination. Did you ever think about how great you are, that you can imagine something? That you do not only look at this picture, here, football, soccer, but surely several people of you can imagine a situation where you had a great soccer game with friends, watching TV and so on. The Proust effect, you see these cookies, for example, and the Proust effect is that you can imagine the smell of these cookies. Or this very nice example that the surrounding where you learn something is really important, with the test that showed that when you learned specific words underwater, that you will be much more likely to remember these words when you are underwater again. For me as a diver, for me as a diver, I really like the last example. What does it mean in AI analogy? AI models adapt to the context of user prompts. Digitalization needs context metadata. We heard so many presentations today about such effects, and it was like kind of flowing by because it is so much technology that we heard about, but we never really thought about our own analogy, what it means to us. So why do I bring all these examples? Because you really need to know what you need and for what purpose. We heard so much about we need more data, we need more data, we need a lot of data, raw data, unfiltered signals. When you do GC, MS, whatsoever analysis, you can create lots of data. Still, you don't know if a specific peak is, for example, hexanol or naphthalene. And it is so easy as it seems, but every day I have to do with people who collect data. I'm a professor as well, but I'm also working at Fraunhofer Institute. Every single day I get people who have a lot of data, and then they are running AI tools, and they're giving me lists of processed data where they say, okay, I got this result, I had this database here, as database, and here I show you the results, and that's the compounds that are in it. And what I get every day is chromatograms, where I have 3, 4, 5 peaks in a chromatogram with the same substance. Oh, this is not really likely to be right. So who is asking if the data is correct? Actually, qualified data. So you really need to understand, if you just want to get a hint what it might be, if there is a group of substances with the core structure of naphthalene, for example, or if it is different subtypes of naphthalene with different types of methyl groups, for example, qualified data. And here already, every day, we have really big problems. You do not want to know how much false data is published in scientific publications. We really did this experiment to find out, and it was kind of shocking. In the world, I'm coming from the world of smell and aroma research. I can tell you it's roughly 60% of the data published is wrong, bullshit. And I can see it just from looking at it. Even in several cases, I know the name of the author in the group, and I know already it's wrong. So, and then the question is, what is relevant data? If you have qualified data, somebody is telling you, I know for sure, I have checked it, I did the quality management controls, this and that is absolutely sure, these and that substances, and I ask, is it dangerous? I don't know. But I identified everything, but I can't tell you if it is dangerous. So that's the next big question. And this is exactly the thing that you need to find out and to think about. It is not sufficient to go to somewhere and say, I want to have digital tools. I need to be absolutely clear who in my organization needs for what purpose, which type of digital tools, so that it is purposeful, and so that it is not everything everywhere, and so that it is not just isolated, but it is later and time by time becoming part of a larger ecosystem. And this is what we really are aiming at, that when people come to us and they want to develop digital solutions together with us, we ask stupid questions. We ask them, why? For what? Do you really need it? And I give you a few examples. Here, for example, this is not plastics, it's not any types of plastics. This is cookies to eat in a bakery. The job was that somebody wanted to have an intelligent system to recognize if there is errors like these little things here. Yes, we can do it. Yeah, we can develop tools that can recognize these little things here. But honestly, I'm really open enough to ask, why? Why do you need this? We can even do it together with experts, that we have an expert operator and we have a camera and we can train it and so on. But then I really do it. I ask, why do you need to recognize this? And very often it is because we always wanted to avoid that we have something like that, because marketing tells us we are not allowed to have something like this. Because the consumer does not want to have this. Are you sure? Honestly? Or is it maybe better to be sure that this is well baked and is not dangerous? So we can support with assistance systems, digital assistance systems, but it is a resource. It uses energy. And we need to really find out, for what purposes do we use all this digitalization? We have just one planet. How much microelectronics and so on do we want to use? To recognize what? Isn't it time to think about sustainable solutions, sovereign solutions, safe solutions, and not just something that marketing wants to have? And so that's why it is much more also about thinking about how we learn, how we generate knowledge, for what it is important. And we separate between explicit knowledge and implicit knowledge. Explicit knowledge, like showing somebody the way where to go. And this is often much more important today, where people obviously lose a feeling for strategy. Where do you want or need to go? Or even more difficult, how to drive or go by a bicycle on its own, somebody on its own, is much more difficult. But I love to develop tools with our team that help somebody to be independent and to know what to do and to where to drive or where to go. And this is just not only for going on a bicycle, but really also how to develop a strategy in a company, for example. So how to acquire knowledge, how to prepare this knowledge, how to use this knowledge for something that has been mentioned before, for cooperation, for transparency, for working together, for creating partnerships, for creating friendships, for creating trust. We heard so much about transparency. Why is nobody using the word honest, to be honest? Do you know, and coming back to the evolution of humankind, what was one of the first things that humans learned when they learned to communicate with each other, to collaborate with each other? One of the first things humans learned was to lie. Isn't it high time to maybe think about if we can use AI tools simply to be honest to each other and to create some better, intelligent knowledge management systems to work together so that all of us are jointly successful? And of course, we need to preserve and transfer our practical know-how to others, because we need to get faster. We are running out of time in this planet, so that we get resilient production, even if there is situations like if we have maybe not enough workers or space or resources, because competition in the world is getting stronger. And of course, this has also to do with the generational change. If we are losing people with competences, either because they are too old, or they didn't learn it, or they simply die for whatever reason, we will have to think about how to use these tools. And we have to think about what human resources we have at hand. And I'll give you just another example, coming back. What tools do make sense? Because this is how I started, and I love it so much. As I said, I'm a smell researcher, a chemist, an odor researcher, I never imagined that in my scientific life I would start sniffing plastics. And I would have never imagined that still in our labs, still today, our researchers are sniffing plastics. Why? Because we have nice digital tools, but we do not have the right sensors to detect these substances. So it is so interesting, so simple that we think about digital solutions and we don't even have the right sensors to create the data at hand. And that's why we are also working on everything together, on every puzzle piece, to find out which sensors would I need to find out if recyclates are stinky or not. And then to think about and what makes sense then to use as data in further processing. And with that, then really to think about it, what do I really need to predict or to find out based on analytical data? Can I use this recyclate for what purpose? Where do I need smell detection? Maybe there are recyclates where I simply don't need it because I'm much more interested into the color. Or maybe I don't need the detection for the color because it doesn't make sense that somebody asks me for white recyclate because he wants to make it later black. This is typical situations in our daily life. So, and now you understand surely why we always try to put all these pieces together. That we think about how to develop the materials, not only the foods, but also the plastic materials, how we are engineering, developing the engineering, the machinery, how we are developing the recycling and decontamination strategies, and about the consumer acceptance and the sustainable consumption. But the important question here is, and the important point is, we always ask why. First, and for what purpose? Second, and it is so often that our customers, our colleagues, our partners come to us and they say, I have this and that problem, and they go out and they have a completely different solution for something else. And I think this is exactly the important point. And with that, I would like to end, but I would like to bring to you the thought, or I hope I could get through to you, that it is really important with all this digitalization to think about what we need, because it is a question of resources, of personal resources, of money, of microelectronics, of energy, and so on. And if you are in a situation where somebody tells you, we need data, we need data, we need everything, we need to have, please ask yourself, is it true? And where do I need which type of solution and insight? And please take this inspiration by nature. Nature would have never developed like that. When you look at your nose is so fascinating. The substances that are flying around and that you're perceiving with your nose, you do not get all this information into your brain. Forget it. There's an integration already here at the first level of the receptors, at the sensors, where already your olfactory bulb is deciding what is important and what is not important. This is very fascinating. There's so many steps, and the smell, the sense of smell is the most direct going into your brain, and still there's at least 3 different stages of filtering before it ends up really in your consciousness, and most of it does not end up in your consciousness at all. So please don't think that you are really a machine that is able to detect everything, but I think the real machines also should not work the same way as well, because it takes too much effort, too much energy. Myself personally, I'm fully convinced that these digital tools will help us as humans to do the next evolutionary step if we use it wisely, to work together, to think about different ways of collaboration, of different ways of using our resources. We have big challenges in our world. We need to really work with our resources. Please use it wisely. Thank you.
Thank you so much for reminding us about resources and also honesty. And we definitely have to talk afterwards because I have no sense of smelling, so I don't know what this means for my honesty. But
oh my God, no, it's not such a problem.
Are there, so to this inspiring speech, are there questions from the audience first?